Hello everyone, welcome back to 99 Blades. Today we're going to be reviewing the Spyderco Manix 2. This one has been heavily modded, and we're going to also have a little bit of a discussion at the end about modded Spydercos. So let's start with our general specs. We'll do weight and measurement. This one was originally a crew carta, and it was 4.9 ounces, and now it's 4 ounces with the mods, which we will discuss in a little bit. And our length is about, really close to 8 overall. So 7 and very close to 8. We'll do our size comparisons here. Baby Banter and Elementum. This is a very large knife, or at least broad and large. Let's put it next to the Rat 1.5 and the Model 1. So you can see it's a little bit smaller here. I think it's pretty similar to the 1.5, maybe just a hair longer, but it feels much more substantial given its height. Next, we'll do our two Benchmades, the Bug Out and the Osborne. Bigger than both, I'd say. And probably the more or most important, the Spydercos, the Pair 3 and the PM2. I would say it's pretty similar in overall length to a PM2, but just kind of slightly shaped different. Thickness, I believe the original crew carta was a little bit thicker, but this one is slimmer with the mods, and it is just slightly taller than the PM2 in the pocket, and overall wider. You can see this taper versus this out more. You feel it in the pocket a little bit more. You can feel it in the hand when you're just kind of holding it like this. But I'll leave the Spydercos nearby. But it feels not bad, right? It is bigger and thicker in the pocket than most things you'll carry, but I still think it's worth it. And in terms of trade-off, you get a really awesome blade. I use this knife probably in like my top 5, top 10 most used in terms of just cutting cardboard or if I want to cut something. So let's dive into it. We're going to kind of start tip to tail for this one. The blade remains unchanged. This is a crew wear. It has a few chips like right there. Blunted. You can kind of see the tips blunted there. Outside of that, really awesome blade. It's not the thinnest, but it has so much time to taper. Just crunches through cardboard fantastically. Deployment with the Spyderco hole is fantastic on this crossbar lock. You can wheel it out. Thumb flick, reverse flick is money. Really, really solid deployment, and I kind of like it more than the compression lock in terms of just ease of use. I do like the compression lock a lot, but something about the way they do this ball lock or cage lock, fantastic. I guess I'll talk about things that are still stock. So obviously the blade, this runs on a bushing, so the bushing, the pivot hardware, and the spring. Scales are aftermarket, lanyards aftermarket, clip is aftermarket. The lock interface, I switched out the stainless steel for a ceramic, and the cage, I swapped out the plastic for this titanium with tritium inside, which is completely so over the top. But that's kind of our tip tail. So scales are from Rock Scale Design. They are the linerless, so they delete the liner. Really like that. Makes it thinner and lighter. This is what really is contributing to the 0.9 ounces less. The clip is from Rec, and this is probably one of the best clips I think I've ever experienced. it's like rounded. You can see here, it's like contoured, and it's kind of like a flat top with contouring. So there's like no hot spots on this, and it is phenomenal in the hand. And I feel like this really matches the design of the Manix too. So really love this clip. Um, the lock, I do like the titanium lock more than the plastic that they used. It's less slippery. Um, the tritium one is completely useless. You do not need to get the tritium one. Just the titanium one will be more than enough. And I did find the ceramic ball to be more smooth than the stainless steel that came with it. So that's like a potential upgrade. And if you are buying the liner delete, you do have to get a different lanyard tube because I think the Spyderco one sticks out too much. So let's talk about the Manix 2. I think, ignoring the mods, I do think I like the Manix 2 more than the PM2, more than the Para 3. Um, it might be my favorite in the Spyderco lineup. I haven't handled all the Spydercos, but from the ones I have handled, um, these are kind of my three favorite, and maybe a little native, which I haven't gotten in here. Um, but and maybe a shaman I'd want, but that Manix 2 is phenomenal. The PM2 has great ergonomics. The Pair 3, you can't really hold it back here. You're kind of locked in at the front. It's really nice. Um, it's kind of that more compact, more EDC. This one's maybe more work knifey just because of the length. Both are workhorses and staples in the knife world for a reason. But I always find myself reaching for the Manix 2 and grabbing the Manix 2 because the way this ramp, I don't know, the PM2 has a ramp, but it feels more like my thumb. I'm double jointed, so it feels kind of like that. Well, this one you kind of lay it out. So that ramp design to me is too steep. This more shallow ramp, you can really guide the edge down. It feels like you're pushing into your cut. This one kind of feels like the cut's pushing back. It's super tiny, but too steep on the ramps for the paramilitary series. This smoother ramp, I love it. Really awesome. Just locks you in, ready to go to work. Awesome knife. The crew carta, the micarta was really nice. I've handled the lightweight with the S110V. That one's really cool too. If you want something really light, just a really awesome platform. The way this axis lock is done, I did a video where there's kind of like you have this dead zone and then it breaks like right there. You kind of feel that break. This one has no dead zone. It just breaks. So it gives you more of like a positive detent feeling. And I think that's just the way it's like a standard spring kind of ramming in versus an Omega spring kind of providing resistance. Um, a lot of people really like the axis lock for that hands-free, you're not in the cutting path compared with something like a frame lock, where it falls to your nail. You have that tiny risk. This, you're out of the way, which is pretty cool. This one's very clicky, very snappy. And I will say changing the detent ball didn't change that aspect, the positive click and snap. So even a stock one feels very similar. The bushing's pretty cool. Allows you to really tighten the pivot down to get rid of blade play. And I guess Spyderco's done a good job with their bushings because sometimes, you can get a tiny bit of blade play if the bushing's just a pinch too oversized. But so far, so good on the several that I've handled. So should you get a Manix 2? If you have a Spyderco or two, I would recommend getting a Manix. It's a really awesome complement to whatever Spyderco you have, thicker blade stock. less likely to chip the tip on different types of tasks. So a good complement to your Spyderco collection. Maybe you like Benchmades, but some of their newer prices you don't like. Manix is pretty good. The Crew Carter I think was $170 is what I paid for Crew Wear and my Cardo, which I think is quite fair for the USA made knife. So bottom line, yes, I would recommend a Manix 2. Do I recommend modding a Manix 2? Yes and no. So the Manix is about 170, 180. Then the scales, I think I paid maybe like 120. The clip was 50. The lanyard was 10. The lock was 80, which is ridiculous. I would never recommend paying it. But all in all, you're looking at 400 to 500, depending on what clip or lanyard or scales you end up going if you want titanium. And the price increases quite drastically. And you're kind of in, maybe a used Sabenza territory. Maybe you're in a McNeese Mac 2 territory. And it kind of, it's a Spyderco. Is it worth all the money you sink into it? And I think it depends on what your goal is with a Spyderco. I really liked my Manix with Crewwear, but I wanted something a little thinner and a little lighter. And this delivers. It's thinner, it's lighter, 0.9 ounces lighter. And I really enjoy this knife. I use this a lot. It's kind of one of my core lineup type knives. And I think all of those upgrades that you do over time can really benefit kind of like an enthusiast market. If you just want a really nice knife, you can buy a stock Manix 2 and it'll serve you really well. But adding some of these layers makes it a little more interesting to me and, to a lot of others who do this. You're looking at, you could do carbon fiber, you could do different scales that could lower that price. But the cool thing is you can kind of do it over time. So one of the first things I always do with Spydercos is I replace the clips. I do not like Spyderco stock clip. So these I went with Lynch Northwest clips, but I didn't like the way the Lynch clip looked on the Manix 2, so I shopped around and I found the wreck. So after I got that, then I waited and then took the knife apart and I was like, I want to see if I can find a lock I like more. So I ended up putting this titanium and I do like that more. Then I finally decided I was going to buy the scales. So then I bought the lanyard and the scales and I said, while I disassemble it one more time, I might as well get the ceramic ball. So this took 3 waves of mods, which is kind of nice because you can spread it out and you can upgrade it as you see fit.